Welcome back to World Crisis Radio on this last day of the old year. Keep up with my work at tarpley.net. So we're going to have Republican Tea Party ogres coming to town. There is a possibility for a draconian genocidal austerity convergence with Obama, but it may also be that the ideological rage of these Tea Party types is so overwhelming that they go for some kind of government shutdown and or default bankruptcy by the United States. And again, these people are at war with the Constitution. They're constantly wearing the Constitution on their sleeve. They hate the Constitution. They hate the General Welfare Clause. The General Welfare Clause is in the preamble. The General Welfare Clause is in Section 1, where they talk about the duties of Congress. The General Welfare Clause is in there not once but twice, and they hate it. The Constitution also says that the Congress shall have the power to borrow money on the credit of the United States. They hate that one. They hate the 14th Amendment. They hate the 16th Amendment. They hate the direct election of senators. There's a whole bunch of amendments that they hate, and they're going to try to roll back some of these. I hope they do, because they'll run up against a brick wall. And it will also show people, once again, the bankruptcy of both parties, not just Obama and the Wall Street Democrats, obviously bankrupt. And we've been fighting them now for 3 years here in the trenches. But we've also now got these reactionary Republicans, Austrians, whatever we want to call them, some kind of foreign body with some obscure foreign ideology which violates the high wage, high technology, high capital intensity tradition of the United States. Let's look back. Of course, Alfred Khan died this week. Alfred alias Genghis Khan. Normally, de mortuis nihil nisi bonum, but unfortunately, this is an important case. Alfred Khan was a New York City investment banker, scion, professor of economics at Cornell. This is where deregulation started. Look at the obituaries of Alfred Khan, and you will see that he began the deregulation of airlines, which has driven how many out of business? And you look at the wasteland of commercial aviation today. Can you really say that this was well done? Look at trucking, look at electricity, look at opening the door to Enron, look at the deregulation of derivatives. The whole Austrian deregulation furor has qualitatively debased and destroyed and degraded the U.S. economy, and now they want more. Remember, in the Schultz plan, George Shultz and that faction want tax cuts for the rich, cut domestic discretionary spending, mainly unemployment benefits, gouge, cut, and destroy entitlements, Social Security and Medicare, deregulate everything, and have a strong dollar, deflate the dollar, and use that to increase the power of these super rich. So Alfred Khan departs from the scene. But now let's look in case of Florida. We have got this guy, Rick Scott, who this is now competition for Chris Christie. You know Chris Christie, the Garden State Goering. Chris Christie is a little bit under a cloud this week because his performance in the New Jersey blizzard of the day after Christmas was wretched. He was out in Disneyland cavorting with his kids, and this did not sit well with the working people there in Trenton and elsewhere. So Christie not looking too good as a result of his malfeasance during the strike, during the blizzard. But now we have competition, right? Who is the most reactionary Republican governor? Rick Scott. Now, what's his background? Hospital Corporation of America, and you know their business model. It's now called Columbia HCA. Their model was to pick four nonprofit community hospitals and to essentially find ways to drive them into bankruptcy so that they could be privatized as for-profit HCA hospitals. And those are the methods that Scott wants to bring to Florida. And we have an interesting op-ed here, today's Wall Street Journal, Friday, December 31st, by Steve Moore. You see him on TV all the time. He's a friend of Kudlow and any number of others. So he's on here, Rick Scott, saying, I'm going to run this state like a business. What does that mean? Well, he wants to phase out the state corporation income tax. slash property taxes. That means the education system is going to be gutted. Rapidly expand the state's K-12 vouchers and charter schools so Florida parents have more education options. In other words, so rich oligarchs get a huge discount on the expensive private schools that they can afford for their kids. Now, Scott, unfortunately, is also under a cloud because his company there was a party to $1.6 billion with a B in fraudulent Medicare and Medicaid claims in the mid-1990s by Columbia Hospital Corporation, which was Mr. Scott's firm at the time. So how is he going to say, I'm going to reform Medicaid in the state when his track record is that he is a party to these, or at least he's presiding over these $1.6 billion in fraudulent claims? And unfortunately, the Democrat in that race was unable to bring home this issue. Obviously, the Democrats, because of their own subservience to the oligarchical financiers, they can't fight this stuff. The most interesting thing now about Rick Scott is forced labor, and by that I mean Zwangsarbeit. Zwangsarbeit in the what can we say, National Socialist tradition. He says if you're unemployed after 13 weeks, you're going to be put to work. You're going to be getting forced labor in Florida, and they're going to make you do things. Now, they say community service. I don't think it's going to be community service. I think his idea will be, we'll put you to work as a scab. We'll put you to work as a strike breaker, as a replacement worker, as they like to say. We'll go someplace where there's a strike of hotel employees or janitors or other low-wage, low-skilled workers, and we'll force unemployment recipients to become the reserve army of the unemployed, right? The potential pool of scabs and strikebreakers, except this time not organized even so much by the bosses, but organized by the government of Florida under the control of Rick Scott. So if you were planning to take refuge in Florida, you better think again. He, of course, wants the entire Medicaid program to be completely farmed out to the states. The answer to that is, remember that the reason that oligarchs prefer states' rights is because it's easier for oligarchs to dominate a state than it is to dominate the federal government. The proof of that is also, if you look at this past election, the 65 Republican gains, you notice that there's a disparity between the Senate and the House. The degree of Republican prevalence in the House is much larger. What explains this? It's the same election, same conditions, same kinds of candidates in many cases. The difference is that in the smaller unit, the congressional district of 500,000 or 600,000 people, the money coming in from foreigners, from the Koch brothers, from other plutocrats, can be much more effective. That's where the money can buy an election. It's harder to do that in a state because there are other competing interests. There are some unions, there are some other things that may not be present in a narrowly defined congressional district in the suburbs. But in a state, it's likely to be more of a cross-section of the population. So, again, the smaller the unit, the more oligarchical dominance you're going to have. That's feudalism. That's what neo-feudalism is all about. So we're left now at the end of the year. Obama's a Wall Street puppet. He's a warmonger. He's a union buster. He's a totalitarian. He has this Napolitano running around. He's going to impose the carbon dictatorship with the EPA, or he's going to try. He can't fight the Republicans. He's going to capitulate on these points. He's already said he wants to start cutting the budget in 2011. Well, what have we found in Europe? The Europeans have found what Brüning taught us already between 1930 and 1932. The more you cut a budget in a depression, the bigger the deficit will be in the out years, that is to say in successive budget years. So it's time to get together and have a candidate to challenge Obama in those primaries, because that entire phenomenon begins next week, next month. January 2011, the presidential candidates get going, and we hope it's not going to be Haley Barbour and not going to be other reactionaries, odious types that we see running around. So we've got to wish all of our listeners a very happy, healthy, prosperous New Year. The best to all of you. And remember, stay tuned to Tarpley.net. And if you've still got some holiday shopping, buy some of those books that are offered there. And there will be some more coming in 2011. So we'll see you next year.